Hey guys, I don't even know how to begin this. I never thought I'd be that person, telling a story about how my dream wedding turned into the most traumatic, chaotic, horrifying day of my entire life. But here I am. This is the story of how everything that could have gone wrong on my wedding day did. The dress, the flowers, the family, the drama, the food, the venue, even the groom. Every single thing that was supposed to be perfect turned into a disaster. And that's not even the worst part. Because sometimes, what breaks you isn't just the chaos of the moment, but the lies and betrayal that you never saw coming. So if you love drama, if you've ever been in a toxic relationship, or if you just want to hear how a literal fairy tale wedding became a nightmare in slow motion, buckle up. Because this is the wedding from hell. Let's go back to the beginning, where it all started. It started off like a fairy tale, I swear. I met Jordan at my best friend's engagement party. He wasn't even supposed to be there. He'd come as someone's plus one. I remember seeing him across the room, laughing with a group of people, wearing this dark navy suit and looking like he stepped out of a magazine. He noticed me at the same time, and we had that stupid rom-com moment where you make eye contact and everything kind of fades out around you. It was cheesy and perfect. We ended up talking for hours. Everyone else was dancing, drinking, partying, but we were just in our own little world. We talked about travel, our families, the dumbest TV shows. He was charming in a very calm, confident way. And when he walked me to my car that night, he kissed me on the cheek and said, "Let's not make this a one-time thing." We started dating the next week. Everything moved fast, but in that exciting, whirlwind kind of way. Jordan was attentive, generous, thoughtful. He remembered the smallest things I said. He sent me lunch at work. He called me just to hear my voice. I felt seen in a way I never had before. My friends loved him. My mom adored him. He was a financial consultant, well-traveled, good-looking, polite, emotionally available. All the things that make you think, wow, this guy might actually be it. We moved in together after 8 months. I know, it was fast. But everything felt right. He was mature, reliable, organized. We shared a grocery list app for crying out loud. He folded laundry without being asked. He rubbed my feet after work. I felt like the luckiest woman alive. The proposal came during a trip to Santorini. It was sunset. We were on a balcony, wine in hand. He got down on one knee with a simple, elegant ring and asked me to be his forever. Of course, I said yes. It was picture perfect. My Instagram post from that night got the most likes I've ever had. Everyone said we were goals, but looking back, there were cracks. Cracks I chose to ignore, because I was in love with the idea of us. And maybe, just maybe, Jordan was too. After the engagement, I was on cloud 9. I had the Pinterest boards, the wedding apps, the color palettes. I was that bride. The one who had been secretly planning her dream wedding since she was 12. And now, it was finally happening. Jordan seemed excited too, at first. We set a date, exactly 1 year from the proposal. I thought that gave us plenty of time to make everything perfect. We decided on a spring wedding, in this beautiful vineyard just outside the city. It had this stunning open-air ceremony space with ivy-covered arches and a reception hall with floor-to-ceiling windows. I hired a wedding planner, Karina, who was supposed to make things easier. She was organized, upbeat, and knew all the right vendors. But I quickly learned that no amount of spreadsheets or planning software can prepare you for what really goes down when you start planning a wedding, especially one involving 2 complicated families. Jordan's family was formal. Very old money, very traditional, very involved. His mom, Margaret, had opinions on everything. She hated the idea of an outdoor ceremony because it wasn't elegant. She didn't like my dress because it had too much skin. She sent me lists of more appropriate bridal gowns, none of which I asked for. My own mom tried to help, but she was overwhelmed. She'd raised me and my 2 younger siblings mostly on her own, and now she was trying to pay for part of the wedding while dealing with her own health issues. I felt pulled in a million directions, trying to keep the peace, please everyone, and still somehow enjoy the process. Jordan, meanwhile, started checking out. He was too busy to come to venue visits. He trusted my taste on decor. He barely showed up for meetings with the planner. At first, I appreciated the freedom, but after a while, it just felt like he didn't care. Every time I brought it up, he'd say, "You're stressing too much," or "I want you to have what you want." And while that sounds supportive, it also meant I was left doing everything alone. I should have seen that as a sign, but I told myself he was just avoiding the drama, that once the day came, he'd show up and everything would be magical. One day, Karina pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay between me and Jordan. I laughed it off. "We're just different about this stuff," I said. "He's not a planner. I am." But deep down, I felt it, the disconnect, the distance. And there was one night I'll never forget, 2 months before the wedding. We were arguing about the guest list. Jordan wanted to invite a coworker I didn't even know, and I said no because we were already over budget. He snapped. Like really snapped. Threw the guest list binder across the room and said, "It's not like this is even about us anymore. It's just your stupid fairy tale." I was speechless. That was the first time he'd ever raised his voice at me like that. He apologized later, said he was just stressed from work, and I believed him. Because I wanted to. I didn't realize it then. But that moment was the beginning of the end. The start of the unraveling. But of course, I kept planning. Because that's what brides do, right? We power through. We ignore the warning signs. We believe in the happy ending, even when the storm is already brewing. You know how hindsight is always 20/20? Yeah. Looking back, the red flags were basically on fire. But in the moment, I just didn't want to see them. I thought they were just little bumps in the road. Normal stress, pre-wedding jitters, family tension. But oh, how wrong I was. Let's start with the phone thing. Jordan suddenly got really protective of his phone. Like weirdly so. He used to leave it lying around, face up, unlocked. Now, it was always on silent, face down. And he had a new password. When I asked about it, he said, "Work's been crazy. There's confidential stuff I can't risk anyone seeing." Okay, fine. I wanted to trust him. But it wasn't just that. He started working late. A lot. And when he came home, he was distant, tired. "Just drained," he'd say. And I'd believe him. Because what was I going to do? Accuse my fiancé of cheating without proof? I wasn't that girl. But the biggest red flag? The bachelorette party. I was excited. My maid of honor, Talia, my best friend since college, planned this beautiful weekend getaway to a beach house with all my closest girlfriends. We were supposed to drink wine, do spa nights, laugh until we cried. And we did. Mostly. But on the second night, after a few too many cocktails, one of the girls, Jess, who's always been a little too observant, pulled me aside and said something that stuck in my gut like a knife. "Hey, I don't want to ruin the weekend," she whispered. "But are you sure Jordan's totally, into this?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Just, he doesn't talk about the wedding much. And when I saw him a couple weeks ago at that work event, he seemed kinda off. Like, distant. He barely mentioned you." Now, Jess wasn't the type to stir drama. She was thoughtful, careful. And for her to say something like that, it made my stomach churn. I confronted Jordan when I got back. He rolled his eyes. "So now your friends are psychoanalyzing me?" I told him I just needed reassurance, that I was feeling unsure. Instead of comforting me, he snapped again. "You're being paranoid," he said. "God, you think I'd propose to you if I wasn't committed?" I cried that night in the bathroom while he slept like a baby in the next room. Another red flag, his ex. Her name was Lila. She and Jordan dated for 2 years before we met. Supposedly it ended amicably, but she started popping up. First as a suggested friend on Instagram. Then she liked one of my photos. Then I got a message from a burner account saying, "He's not who you think he is." I showed it to Jordan. He laughed. "She's crazy," he said. "I don't even talk to her." I blocked the account, deleted the message, and told myself it was just jealousy. Because what else could I do? But the red flags weren't just about him. They were all around us. My little sister Ava, who I love dearly, started acting weird, distant, cold. She was supposed to be a bridesmaid, but she kept missing fittings, dodging calls, and showing up late. When I confronted her, she just shrugged. "You're making this all about you. It's not fun anymore." That hurt. Ava and I had always been close. I chalked it up to stress, but looking back, it was guilt. I just didn't know what for yet. My therapist, yes, I started seeing one, shocker, right? Told me I was in a state of emotional denial. I was so invested in the wedding, the image, the story, that I refused to accept that something wasn't right. But deep down I knew. I felt it in my gut every time Jordan pulled away, every time he avoided eye contact, every time he changed the subject when I said, "Are we okay?" And still, I kept going, because I thought love was enough, because I thought I was enough. I didn't know I was walking straight into the fire. If I had to pinpoint the exact moment when the facade of my picture-perfect wedding shattered, it would be the night of the rehearsal dinner. It started out fine, almost boring even. We hosted it at this cozy Italian restaurant downtown, with dim lighting, white tablecloths, candles on every table. It was intimate, classy, everything I'd imagined. Friends and family gathered, laughter echoing through the space, wine flowing freely. It should have been a joyful night, but something felt off. From the second we walked in, Jordan was tense. His jaw was tight, his answers short, like he was holding in a scream. I tried to brush it off as nerves. Pre-wedding pressure. I mean, everyone gets jittery, right? But then I saw Ava, my sister, sitting at the far end of the room, drinking wine way too fast, cheeks flushed, eyes darting. She was fidgeting with her napkin like it had personally offended her, and she wouldn't meet my gaze. I walked over, touched her arm. "Hey, are you okay?" She jumped like I'd startled her. "Yeah, fine. Just tired." She wasn't fine. The speeches started. Jordan's best man, Eric, got up and gave a weird toast that was kind of shady. Like he made this joke about how he never thought Jordan would settle down, especially not with someone like this, motioning at me, and then laughed like it was the funniest thing ever. Jordan laughed too hard. I remember my cheeks burning. My mom side-eyed him from across the room. I smiled through it like I always did, like a good little bride. Then it was my dad's turn. He gave a sweet, emotional speech. Talked about how proud he was of me, how he knew I'd found someone who loved me deeply. I saw my mom wipe her eyes. People clapped. The moment passed. But Jordan barely looked at me. He was glued to his phone. Again. By dessert, Ava was drunk, slurring her words, avoiding everyone. I pulled her aside in the bathroom. "What is going on with you?" I asked. "You're acting like you don't even want to be here." She avoided my eyes. "Maybe I don't." I blinked. "Excuse me." And then she said something I'll never forget. "You don't know everything, okay?" I stared at her. "What does that mean?" She shook her head, shoved past me, and left the restaurant. I stood there, frozen, staring at the mirror, wondering if I had just imagined the whole thing. Was she jealous? Was she trying to pick a fight? What did she mean? I went back out. Jordan was gone too. Supposedly, he stepped outside to take a call. 15 minutes passed, then 20. I texted him. No response. He finally came back as we were saying our goodbyes. I asked where he'd gone. He said, "Work thing, sorry." He kissed my cheek and smiled like nothing happened. I forced myself to smile back. But inside, everything in me was screaming. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, stomach in knots, while Jordan snored beside me. In the morning, I opened my phone to a message from an unknown number. Just one line. "You still have time to back out." My hands were shaking, but I didn't back out. I should have, but I didn't, because I was already in too deep. I woke up on the morning of my wedding feeling like I was floating outside of my own body. The sunlight streamed through the hotel suite windows. My dress hung on the door like a sacred relic. The makeup artist was already setting up. Bridesmaids buzzed around with mimosas and half-finished toasts. I smiled. I laughed. I even took selfies. But inside, I was unraveling. I hadn't told anyone about the message I got the night before. "You still have time to back out." I hadn't told anyone about Ava's weird bathroom confession. I hadn't told anyone that Jordan disappeared during our rehearsal dinner, or that he'd been acting cold for weeks. I just kept pushing forward, because I didn't know how to stop the train once it had started. Because the dress was paid for. The guests had flown in. The venue was booked. I kept thinking, it's just nerves. Everyone feels this way. Once we say I do, everything will fall into place. Wrong, so wrong. Around 10 a.m., my phone rang. It was my wedding planner, Karina. "Hey," she said, "we've got a small hiccup." My stomach dropped. "What kind of hiccup?" "Well, the florist delivered the wrong centerpieces. They're pink instead of ivory. And, the pastry chef says someone canceled your custom cake yesterday. But don't panic. We've got a backup." "What?" I nearly dropped the phone. "Who canceled the cake?" She hesitated. "They said the groom called." I stared at the screen like it had betrayed me. Jordan wouldn't do that. "Maybe it was a miscommunication. I'll handle it." But it didn't end there. My maid of honor, Talia, pulled me aside a few minutes later. She looked pale. "Okay, don't hate me for this," she said. "But I need to show you something." She handed me her phone. A screenshot. A message from her boyfriend, who worked part-time at a bar near Jordan's office. Jordan was there last night, with Ava. They were drinking, alone, late, and according to the bartender, they looked intimate. I felt the blood drain from my face. Talia said, "I didn't want to tell you before the wedding, but I'd want to know. Wouldn't you?" I didn't even answer. I just sat down. In full makeup and rollers, wedding robe half-tied, heart pounding so hard it shook my ribs. Was it true? Was he with her? No. This couldn't be happening. Ava was my sister. Jordan was my fiancé. My whole life was about to start. This wasn't some stupid soap opera. I had two options. Confront him and possibly blow up the entire day. Or pretend it didn't happen and keep marching forward with blinders on. Guess which one I picked? Yeah, I put on the dress. I put on the damn dress. Because people were waiting. Because the violinist had started tuning. Because my mom looked so proud. Because if I stopped to think, I might fall apart completely. But I'll never forget that moment. Staring at myself in the mirror. A bride. A fraud. A woman about to walk into something she couldn't undo. The makeup was flawless. The dress fit like a dream. But I'd never felt so fake in my life. When we arrived at the venue, things just kept spiraling. The flower girl threw a tantrum and refused to walk. The officiant was stuck in traffic. The sound system kept glitching. Jordan still hadn't texted me once all morning. And Ava? She wasn't answering her phone. It was like the universe was trying to stop me, and I should have listened. But instead I took a deep breath, smiled at my reflection, and said, "Let's do this." The music started. Soft violins playing the instrumental version of Can't Help Falling in Love. It was supposed to be magical, the crescendo to a year of planning, the start of our forever. I stood at the edge of the aisle, gripping my bouquet so tightly my knuckles turned white. Guests stood. Cameras clicked. My heart pounded so loudly I couldn't hear the music anymore. All I could hear was the sound of my own doubts. I looked up, searching for Jordan. There he was, at the altar, in a tailored black tuxedo, expression unreadable. He wasn't smiling. Not at me. Not at anyone. Red flag number 27. But I walked. I walked anyway. With each step, the knot in my stomach tightened. The air felt heavy, like something was about to snap. I could feel the eyes on me. Admiration, envy, love, curiosity. All of them unaware that this fairy tale was a lie waiting to collapse. When I reached the altar, Jordan took my hands. His palms were clammy. He didn't say anything, just nodded, like we were signing a business deal. The officiant cleared his throat and began. Standard stuff. Love, commitment, honor, cherish. And then it came time for the vows. We'd written our own. I pulled out my folded paper, hands shaking, took a breath, and read. Jordan, from the moment I met you, I felt like the ground beneath me shifted. You challenged me, calmed me, confused me, and completed me. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I promise you my whole heart. Always. A few guests sniffled. My mom wiped a tear. I looked up at Jordan, waiting, hoping. Then he pulled his vow card from his pocket and paused. He glanced at me, then at the guests, then at the card again. He cleared his throat. I didn't write anything. Silence. Dead, horrifying silence. I stared at him. What? I meant to, he muttered. I just didn't get around to it. I'll say something from the heart. He turned to the crowd, arms stiff at his sides. I guess, yeah, marriage is a big step, you know? Life is full of surprises, and I just think we should all be real about that. Someone coughed in the back. My maid of honor's jaw dropped. I was mortified. He looked back at me. So, yeah, let's do this. He said it like we were about to play a tennis match. The officiant, bless him, tried to recover. All right, let's proceed with the rings. Talia handed me Jordan's ring. I went first. With this ring I thee wed, I said, barely able to get the words out. Then it was his turn. He took my ring and hesitated. Longer than a normal pause. And then, before he even said anything, I heard it. A sudden voice. From the back, clear, loud, and sharp. Don't do it. Everyone turned. There, standing at the end of the aisle, was Ava, my sister, my bridesmaid, looking pale, tear-streaked, and completely broken. Don't marry her, she said. Her voice cracked. She doesn't know the truth. The guests gasped. My father stood. My mother whispered something in horror. I turned around, stunned. What are you talking about? I asked. She took a step forward. I didn't want to do this like this. I tried to stop it earlier. I really did. I felt dizzy. The ground felt like it was spinning. And then she said it. I've been sleeping with Jordan. A loud gasp swept through the crowd. My knees almost gave out. I grabbed the edge of the altar to stay upright. Jordan didn't say a word. Didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. That silence, that was all the confirmation I needed. Talia rushed toward me, caught me before I collapsed. The officiant looked ready to pass out. People stood up, murmuring, whispering, some even leaving their seats. Phones came out. I turned to Jordan. Tell me she's lying. Still silence. Jordan. He blinked. It just happened. My world shattered, right there in front of everyone I loved. My sister, my fiancé, together, and not a single person had warned me. I tore the ring off my finger and dropped it at his feet. I turned, shaking, heart hammering, and walked down the aisle. Alone, everyone parted as I passed. Like I was contagious. Like they didn't know what to do. No one said a word. Not even my parents. I made it outside, collapsed into a chair near the fountain, and screamed. Not cried, screamed. It was the only thing I could do. My wedding was officially over, and that was just the beginning of the aftermath. The venue staff cleared away the champagne glasses. The guests trickled out, stunned and whispering. The altar stood abandoned, like the wreckage of a ship that never set sail. And I sat on a stone bench in my wedding dress. Mascara streaked down my cheeks, shaking hands gripping the armrests. My veil had slipped to one side. My heels pinched my toes. My life, as I thought I knew it, had been detonated in front of 130 people. Talia sat beside me silent, her hand gently covering mine. I don't understand, I kept whispering. How could they do this to me? She didn't answer, because there was no answer. No words to make sense of betrayal that deep. Eventually, my mom came outside. Her eyes were red. "Sweetheart," she said carefully, "do you want to go somewhere private? We can get you out of that dress." I couldn't even respond. I just nodded. Talia and my mom helped me back to the hotel suite where I had gotten ready just hours before. It was surreal walking past the same mirror I'd smiled in front of that morning. I didn't recognize the woman staring back now. That version of me, hopeful, glowing, naive, had been buried under the rubble of what should have been my wedding. I ripped the dress off like it was suffocating me, tossed it across the room, sat in silence. The messages started rolling in almost immediately. My phone was blowing up. Missed calls from Jordan, texts from Ava, voicemails from guests asking what just happened. I turned my phone off. I didn't want apologies. I didn't want explanations. I wanted time to feel the betrayal, to sit with it, let it swallow me whole. But of course, that's not how life works. Less than 24 hours later, the story had already started spreading. Someone had recorded Ava's outburst and posted it online. A few wedding guests reshared it. And somehow, God only knows how, it went viral. Wedding ruined by sister's affair with groom became clickbait gold. I was humiliated. Not just in front of friends and family, but now, strangers too. I became a punchline on the internet. Memes, TikToks. POV. You're the sister at the wedding who exposes the groom. People laughed. But it wasn't funny. Not to me. Jordan tried to contact me again. I blocked his number. He sent flowers, letters, emails. One even said, "It didn't mean anything. I just got confused. I still love you." As if that excused sleeping with my sister, Ava sent me a long, rambling voice message, crying, saying it wasn't supposed to happen, and that she hated herself. She swore it started after Jordan and I got engaged, that it was just one mistake that turned into several, that she tried to stop it, but feelings got involved. She ended it with, "You have every right to hate me, but I hope one day you'll understand." Understand? No, I didn't understand. I would never understand. My sister. The girl who braided my hair, who I confided in, who stood by me through childhood and heartbreaks, had betrayed me in the deepest, most disgusting way imaginable. And Jordan? I thought I was going to build a life with him. Instead, I learned that he had been living a double one behind my back. The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Non-refundable vendors, canceled honeymoon, thousands of dollars lost, gifts returned, awkward conversations with distant relatives and coworkers. But the worst part? It was losing the life I had built in my head. I didn't just grieve Jordan. I grieved the idea of him. The version I made up. The one I thought I loved. I stayed with my parents for a few days. I barely spoke. I didn't eat much. I just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything could have gone so horribly wrong. Everyone said the same thing. You dodged a bullet. And maybe I did. But it didn't feel like it. It felt like a bomb had exploded in the middle of my life, and now I was picking up shards of glass barefoot. The worst part? I blamed myself. Was I not enough? Was I too controlling? Did I miss the signs because I didn't want to see them? How could I have been so blind? The shame was almost unbearable, but slowly, very slowly, the numbness began to fade. And the anger set in. There comes a point in every heartbreak when grief turns into rage. And let me tell you, I got there, fast. After days of silence, of tears, of questioning my sanity, I stopped crying. Something in me snapped, and I knew what I had to do. I needed to face them, both of them, not over text, not through voice notes or crumpled apology letters, face to face. So I arranged it. A meeting, in person, at a little cafe downtown, the kind of place I used to go to for comfort. Creamy lattes, warm croissants, soft jazz in the background. I picked the table by the window, wore no makeup, pulled my hair into a messy bun, no fancy outfits. I wanted them to see me raw, broken, but not destroyed. They arrived 5 minutes late, together. Of course they did. Jordan looked tense. Ava looked like she'd aged 10 years. Neither of them could meet my eyes. "Thanks for coming," I said, voice flat. Ava opened her mouth. I held up my hand. No, you'll speak when I'm done. They both froze. Good. I looked at Jordan first. You lied to me for months. You held my hand, made wedding plans with me, kissed me goodnight, all while sleeping with my sister. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. I trusted you. I was ready to build a life with you. I ignored my gut. I defended you when people said you weren't right for me. And this is what you were doing behind my back? He lowered his head. It wasn't supposed to happen. Don't, I snapped. You had every chance to stop it. You made 1,000 choices that led to that moment, and you still showed up at the altar like nothing happened. He looked like he might cry. Good, let him. Then I turned to Ava, the girl who used to sleep in the bunk below mine, the girl who whispered secrets with me late at night. My own blood. You were supposed to protect me, and instead, you were the knife in my back. Tears welled in her eyes. I was in a bad place. You think I care? I hissed. You didn't come to me. You didn't warn me. You stood beside me in a bridesmaid dress while you slept with my fiancé. You let me walk to that altar like a fool. She broke. She started crying, loudly, hands over her face, chest heaving. Jordan reached over, touched her shoulder. That was the final nail in the coffin. I stood up. That's all I needed. I hope you two have a wonderful, shame-filled life together. Or not. I honestly don't care. Ava sobbed. Please, don't let this be the end of us. I laughed. The us you killed? Oh no, Ava. You ended it. Not me. I'm just finally walking away from the fire. I left the cafe with my head high and my chest on fire. Not with sadness anymore, but with clarity. They were both weak, and I was finally free. I didn't wake up the next day feeling better. There was no magical sunrise or cinematic turning point. Healing didn't arrive in some perfectly timed montage. What actually happened was this. I woke up with puffy eyes, a numb heart, and no idea who I was anymore. And that's where I had to start. You don't realize how much of your identity becomes entangled in another person until they're gone. It wasn't just the loss of Jordan. It was the loss of plans, of dreams, of routines. We had Spotify playlists together, Amazon accounts, favorite shows, shared friends, shared furniture. And suddenly I was back to square one, alone, with silence ringing in my ears. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you solid ground. I decided to take a break from everything. Work, social media, people. I went offline, told my boss I needed time off, and booked a solo trip to the mountains. Just me, a journal, and the fresh air. It was terrifying. The first few nights I barely slept. I kept replaying the wedding, the betrayal, the confrontation. I cried on hiking trails. I wrote angry letters I never sent. I sat with the ugliest parts of myself and finally let them breathe. And you know what? Slowly, things shifted. One morning, I woke up to the sound of birds outside my cabin window and didn't feel immediate dread. I brewed coffee, sat on the porch in a blanket, and, for the first time in weeks, felt something that almost resembled peace. I wasn't healed, but I was healing, bit by bit. I started doing things just for me. Reading, painting, badly, journaling every morning. I made a playlist called Rebirth, filled with songs that made me feel like I was becoming someone new. And I was, because I had to rebuild myself, brick by brick. I called a therapist and started sessions twice a week. We unpacked everything, not just the betrayal, but all the patterns that led me to ignore my intuition for so long. We talked about boundaries, self-worth, and the danger of falling in love with potential. I also leaned on the right people. Talia never left my side. She showed up with snacks, funny memes, and zero pressure. My cousin Emma sent care packages with silly notes like, "This cookie loves you more than Jordan ever did." Even my mom, who was initially too shocked to process it all, came around and offered gentle love and support. But more than anything, I leaned on myself. That woman who had stood in a white dress, holding the hand of a liar, was gone. In her place, a woman who had walked through hell and survived it, not without scars, but stronger than I ever thought I could be. Eventually, I got back to work, slowly re-entered the world. The whispers faded. People stopped bringing up the wedding. My name stopped trending. The story faded into digital history, just another, "Can you believe this happened?" clip lost in the scroll. But for me, it was never just gossip. It was my life. And I was done letting other people narrate it for me. Just when I thought I'd finally closed that dark chapter, life had other plans. Months had passed since the wedding disaster. I was settling into a new routine: therapy, work, small joys, quiet nights, when I got the call. "Jordan," on the other end of the line. "Can we talk?" My heart slammed against my ribs like a wild drum. I debated ignoring it, blocking the number, pretending it never happened. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe the need to finally have the last word, made me say yes. We met at a quiet cafe, different from the one where everything fell apart. This one felt neutral, safe. Jordan looked tired, haggard, different. No more cocky smiles or arrogance, just a man who had lost almost everything. He started by apologizing. Not just the hollow "I'm sorry" from before, but a deep, raw confession. "I was a coward," he said. "I ran from my problems, from my fears, from you, and I hurt you in ways I can't begin to fix." He told me how Ava had pushed him into the affair, how he'd been confused and weak, how guilt had eaten him alive since that day. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He knew some wounds were too deep, but he wanted me to know the truth, not the version twisted by social media or gossip, but his version, the messy, painful reality. I listened, and when he was done, I said what I needed to say. "I don't hate you anymore, but I don't want you in my life." It was the hardest goodbye I'd ever said. Walking away, I felt lighter. Like finally, after all the chaos, I'd taken back control of my story. Closure wasn't about forgetting or pretending it never happened. It was about acknowledging the pain, learning from it, and moving forward with open eyes and a full heart. The months that followed closure were some of the most peaceful of my life. I rediscovered who I was. Not the girl defined by heartbreak, but a woman forged through it. I started dating again, cautiously at first. Not looking for someone to complete me, but to share my life with. I traveled more, filled my days with new experiences and old passions. I surrounded myself with people who lifted me up, friends who celebrated my wins, cried with me in tough moments, and reminded me that I was worthy of love and respect. Most importantly, I learned to love myself. I built boundaries where there were none before. I listened to my intuition. I stopped apologizing for my feelings or my needs, and those scars remain, reminders of the pain. They are no longer chains but badges of survival. Sometimes, late at night, I think back to that wedding day, the chaos, the betrayal, the devastation. And I smile, because despite it all, I'm still here, still standing, still me, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever been through heartbreak, betrayal, or a toxic relationship, I want you to know you're not alone. Healing is possible, even when it feels impossible. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me reach others who might need to hear this. And if you feel comfortable, share your own story in the comments below. Sometimes, just talking about it can be the first step to healing. Remember, you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. Keep fighting for yourself, because your story isn't over yet.